It's 9 o'clock at WWRR Scranton Wilkes-Barre. This is a Decades Artist Spotlight.
Hi, this is Marcus Thompson from Timex Social Club.
Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day. I just need some time to get away.
Hey, this is Vicki Peterson of the Bangles.
Just another manic Monday. Wish it was Sunday.
Hey, this is Paul Robb from Information Society.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
And you're listening to Decades.
You are listening to Decades.
And you're listening to Decades with Joey Kramer.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We're on a Decades Artist Spotlight. Got to welcome back to the show Mr. Robert Mason, lead singer, frontman of Warrant. Got a brand new album, Louder, Harder, Faster. We'll be talking to Robert about that and a whole lot more, of course. First album since the passing of Jamie Lane. So let's get to the music, shall we? The lead single off the album, well, I shouldn't say the lead single, the title track of the album, Louder, Harder, Faster, and then we talk to Robert Mason. It's Warrant on the Decades Artist Spotlight. Louder, Harder, Faster.
9 o'clock, time to get ready. Turn off the radio, hot and heavy. Can't be late, racing out the door. Get behind a wheel, put the pedal to the floor. Get in sight for the freak show ride. Set this town on fire tonight. She got one thing on her mind. All she can get, I know she'll find it. Give it the gain, tell the roster. She won't slow, don't to ask her. Going to the show, ticket in a hand, waiting all year to rock with the band. Running to a seat, too loud to talk. All the town boys love to watch that walk. Throw some metal, show a little skin, looking for some trouble if she can get in. Come with me, I know where to go. I know what you like, I know you want it. Give it the gate, to tell the master. She won't slow, don't ask her. She got me up on 10 dimes across that lane. My head's stuck in a spin, now I'm feeling fine. Throw some metal, show a little skin, looking for trouble if she can get in. Come along with me, I know where to go, I know what you like. Yeah, I know what you like and I know you want it. Give it the gate, to tell the master. She won't slow, don't ask her.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight with Joe E. Kramer. This week's artist.
We're on another Decades Artist Spotlight, and tonight we welcome back to the show singer-songwriter, guitarist, and of course the front man for Warrant, Mr. Robert Mason. How you doing, Robert?
I am great. And yourself?
I am doing fantastic. I want to get to the new record in a few minutes, but I gotta touch on this first. It's been 9 years now since you joined Warrant as a full-time gig. Did you see yourself in 2017 being as the solid lead singer of this band back when you took the gig, back in 2000, was it 2008, 2007?
Yeah, it was September of '08. So it's been quite a fun ride. Honestly, yeah. I did not take this on as a temporary thing. I don't do that. I know it was said thusly in the press. Somebody got misquoted, and there was he's filling in for X amount of shows, and then after so many shows, something came out similarly in the press. Apparently he's a full-time member. So
right.
You know what? They needed a singer, and I'm a singer. I was a singer without a band at that moment in time, and they were a band, and we had history. I was kind of a legacy. I mean, you know the history better than probably most people.
Right.
But honestly, Joe, anybody can go to the first paragraph of Wikipedia and find out whatever they need to know. I mean,
And I saw you early on with Warrant, and I just saw you at the M3 Festival back in April, which was phenomenal. I got to say, and you guys were great. I mean, not all the bands there were great. I mean, I loved the show, but Warrant stood out as one of my favorites for the night. I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here and I want to make you feel good. But and people don't anymore. They don't say, Robert Mason, he's the new lead. You are Warrant now. I mean, and everybody sitting around me, I'm telling you this. I mean, of course we know Janie Lane. Everybody knows that, but we don't think anything different. I mean, you play the songs that were made from Warrant before you got there. You play like they, you give the homage to them that they deserve, and then you have the Warrant sound of today, which is fantastic.
Well, in as few words as possible, because I know I've said it hundreds of times by now over the past 8 years, I'm thankful and grateful for the legacy of a band like mine. I absolutely understand. I will say it again. Janie and I were friends. The Lynch Mob opened for Warrant in arenas in 92, 93. So we were friends from early 91, I guess, 91-ish. So when I was making that Lynch Mob record, we became fast friends. And we were pretty much hanging out every night on the road, too, on that tour. So many times at the expense of, the band or van rides or meeting up with them. I mean, Jane and I actually traveled. I spent some nights on the Warrant bus because my guys just went, screw it. He'll find it his way. So I was kind of, if you can call me a legacy,
right?
That reason. And I'm doing it for all the right reasons. I really saw, 4 to 5 guys, 4 to 5 cylinders, ready to pop. And like I said a few minutes ago, they needed a guy, and I was the right guy, I guess. So I'm thankful. I pay as faithful a tribute to the legacy of the band as possible. I really want to make fans happy. But at the same time, I'm me and only me. I can only do what I can do. But I'm really thankful for the fact that we've been able to put out 2 records now. The Louder, Harder record has really come to, fruition in a way that I'm super happy with it. And I feel it's done it's done its purpose in my mind.
I love the Rockaholic album. I really like that album. I played Home on there. I played Life's a Song on there. I played a lot of songs off that album. But was there a reason it was 6 years in between albums? Were you working on this new album the whole time, or did you just feel, we're going to take our time with this before we put out something new?
It's got a couple of facets to it. Really don't feel the same. There isn't that same business model that there was. It's antiquated now. The big monster record company, the big monster advance, you make the big record, they ramp up, there's hype,
right,
blah blah blah, and then you go tour on it, then you go home and write a new record and make a new record or whatever. I'm always writing. I've been going to Nashville 3, 4, 5 times a year since the Rockaholic record came out, maybe 2013, 2012, and just to be a better songwriter, just storing up songs for no reason other than if they ever end up someplace or makes me better at what I want to do is be a better songwriter all the time. So I've been doing that. You build up a wealth of material, but it doesn't all fit the band. We felt, not resting on our laurels, but we felt like we didn't feel that pressure to do another one until we were damn good and ready. And it did get stalled once, at least once, because my drummer Steven has had some right and left shoulders, both his shoulders, injuries and surgeries. So that kind of after your touring year, when you think, oh man, between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, we should do a record. And then Steve's like, oh man, dude, I really have to go to the hospital. I really have to go. I've got a surgeon. I'm going to get worked on, and it's 3 months of rehab. So 1 year it actually stalled it. I had a period that I haven't talked about yet. I had a period where I wasn't writing, and Dixon and I were both. I think if I didn't push, then it didn't really happen. So everybody laid off. Did a bunch of songs on piano, one of which I ended up. The band kind of bugged me to do, and that's why we did You and My Life. I put that on this record, the Louder, Harder record, because the band had been saying, well, you have a bunch of songs just written, that started on piano. Let's make one a piano song instead of translating it to guitar, blah, blah, blah. We'll make it a ballad, put it on. And I had just come back from Nashville with You and My Life. Guy Joe West and I, as a really successful producer, songwriter type guy in Nash Vegas. And I had written it together in his barn. And I said, I did a demo in my house. I brought it to the band, just drum machine and me playing everything, just super simple. And they said, okay, cool, this is the one. I'm like, well, you don't want to hear another? Like, nope, this is the one. I'm like, okay, all right. So, then we had enough songs. So that's how, that's the long-winded, caffeinated answer.
Frontier Records has been great. Finally, they're out there promoting the music again.
Well, things have a flavor of the month, year, week. Now they have a flavor of the minute.
Yeah, I know.
I think Chris Rock and something had said something in a stand-up routine, kind of like, here today, gone today. But the thing is, when you have a legacy and a nostalgia aspect to your band like we do, you've got that core fan base that, they're not bitter or lamenting, but they like, just like my dad and mom wanted the 50s and early 60s doo-wop and pop stuff to come back, and they go see those bands and
right.
That kind of thing. We have people in our generation have that music that we connected with, and it's such a strong connection. It's such a happy and up, and very few songs were hugely negative, and even if they were, they still had kind of a glimmer of hope kind of aspect to them, either lyrically or musically, and people connect with that, and they want some more of it. So bands like ours have the opportunity to do records like that. Frontiers has been a wonderful label for us. Well, we're thankful for all the support of anybody in radio or any of the media anymore that that gives a crap about, gives a rip about Warrant. Honestly, I'm astounded by that every time it happens, and the fan response has been so cool to new songs, Joe. It's crazy. It's like so many people say, "Oh, you got to play the old catalog, and you can't play any new music," and we don't want to beat fans over the head with new songs, but we've put what did we put? New Rebellion and Louder Harder, because it was the first video and
right.
Technically the song we should be doing, title track and all. I was really proud of the fact that I can get, within a very short period of time, I can get audiences to engage in those new songs, having heard them for some of them the first damn time.
There's a lot of bands out there, and I'm not going to mention bands' names, but have changed their sound so much from what they were putting out back in the 80s and 90s. This new Warrant album still sounds like, a mix of the Warrant from the late 80s and, the early 90s. It's still all there.
Part of it is just, I guess, down to a, genetic level. It's who we are.
Right.
And I also, as, the new guy, I laugh about that because Brian Johnson's still the new guy. But part of it is purpose-built as well. I wanted to tap into some of the cool aspects of Dirty Rotten and Cherry Pie that I really loved as a fan, because that's where I come from first, a fan. I wanted to tap into the vibe of it, because it had like big choruses, it had the anthemic kind of, gang vocal scream along that an audience can, like I said, engage in after just a couple of listens and join in on. And, I want that reaction. I want that interplay and that push and pull between myself and everybody up on stage, not just myself. I'm making it about me. I'm sorry. And all those people out there, because, I'm the front man. So I do have that complex where I work so hard to get everybody in that palm of your hand or audience reaction, I say jump, they say how high kind of feel. But but at the same time inject whatever else, I can, and everybody's older and wiser now. So the theme for the songs came from that, mostly from me. And then, and Dixon, Jerry, our bass player, underrated bass player, underrated songwriter. Jerry and I work a lot more closely together, but everybody puts their stamp in the recording process. But then when we got in the studio with Jeff Pilson, it was as if there was mind reading going on. I mean, he would finish my sentences with some stuff, and he's a very musical guy, and I love that. He's musically aware and he's educated. So for the two of us in the studio, it was full on just fun as all get out. Like every day was the greatest thing. So,
and for those who don't know Jeff Pilson, of course, he was part of Dio, part of Dokken. He's in Foreigner now. And I saw Jeff Pilson as the producer. You had Keith Olsen do the Rockaholic album. Jeff Pilson steps in and does the Louder, Harder, Faster album. Was there a reason for the switch, or was it just want something new on every album?
When we were making Rockaholic, I pitched Keith to the band. We had a meeting. Everybody got on well. When you do a record with Keith, he's a legendary guy. Here kids, Google Keith Olsen, and he is a song. He's got an amazing pop rock song sense. And Keith has just such amazing history. I got on great with him. For me, it's all about the experience in the studio. But when it's a Keith Olsen record, you put a lot of stock in that guy. This time around, I've known Jeff. I think George Lynch introduced me to Jeff in '91, and we were kind of peripherally friendly, but not friends. So the whole getting to know you period with Jeff, which I sometimes dread with a new producer, was so quick. And both Dixon and I had loved other things that Jeff had produced. I think in our quest for a guy. Plus, he's California, it's easy, he's right there, and logistically everything worked out. So it was a win-win-win.
Mary met a new guy out on the strip last night. He had the sweetest eyes, told her pretty lies, made her feel just right. She just wants to love someone. I'm feeling alive like the morning sun. Now Jimmy's got a rock band playing on the strip, that's right. Do the show, get paid, get high and get laid, just like he did last night. He's just looking to have his fun. He don't care about anyone. Late at night she's cold and lonely, and she's feeling like the only one. And I wish that I could tell her she's not the only broken heart in town. Only broken heart in town. Now Mary gets all dressed up, goes out to surprise her man. She caught Jimmy behind the dressing room door, pants down with some long-legged fan. She didn't mean to kill no one, no. In a jealous rage, her deed was done. Late at night, she's cold and lonely, and she's feeling like the only one. And I wish that
Radio, Warrant. How about it? Louder, Harder, Faster is the album Only a Broken Heart with Robert Mason.
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on a Decades Artist Spotlight, and this week, Robert Mason from the rock band Warrant. They have a brand new album out, Louder, Harder, Faster. You just heard Only Broken Heart. Before that, you heard the title track, Louder, Harder, Faster. We got a couple more songs to play from them. And, of course, talk to Robert Mason about this album and some specific songs off that album. So that's coming up. Don't you go anywhere. This is the Decades Artist Spotlight exclusively on 105 The River, 104.9, and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM around the world at 105theriver.net. Decades with JoeEKramer.com and the new improved Radio Bolt app for your iPhone or Android device. The Decades Artist Spotlight with Robert Mason of Warrant will continue next. Right here, it's Decades on Total Reach Radio.
This is the Decades Artist Spotlight.
Northeast PA's 105 The River. I love to watch you every morning in the mirror as you start your day. It's funny you don't realize the difference that you've made in my life. It's in the way you look at me. It helps this beat on boy believe, even when I've had my doubts. There ain't a thing that I can't do as long as I've got you in my life. You in my life. Now if this world's got your heart breaking and it's taking every smile away, I'd gladly give you one of mine like you've done for me so many times. Yeah. It's in the way you look at me that helps this beat on boy believe, even
is Warrant, Robert Mason, and Warrant on the Decades Artist Spotlight.
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
Decades Artist Spotlight this week, we're with Robert Mason of Warrant. I saw Warrant, of course, the first time I saw them was in 1988. But the second, I've seen them a couple times since then. Just saw them at the M3 Festival back in April. They were sensational. Not only does the new music they play, which they sprinkle in, they don't overdo it, but they respect the old stuff. And Robert respects the old stuff, as he said. And, hey, let's get back to Robert Mason of Warrant on the Decades Artist Spotlight. Louder, Harder, Faster. Of course, it just came out in May. It's on Frontier Records. I'll plug the website, warrenrocks.com, which you could check out all of this.
It ain't that hard, folks.
I'm going to talk about my favorites on this album because I don't want to go on and on and on. But obviously, Louder, Harder, Faster kicks off the album. I mean, driving rock, 80s style. I mean, and I heard you came out, that was one of your phrases that you would always say. And that's how you came up with the title and the title of the album.
You have done your homework. I remember saying it on stage as a thing to say in between songs, like to ramp up from a ballad into a barn burner type song.
Right.
And it just kind of stuck. And then, 3, 4, 10 times later, I said, well, maybe that's a song. Maybe that's a title. Maybe that's something. And I had a riff. I put a song together. It happened, I think, kind of the way those things happen. I wake up in the morning, make coffee, sit with an acoustic guitar, an electric, or my piano in the front room of my place, and I try to make a song come out. That one just happened. But it happened years ago. That's been sitting on a shelf, demoed. It sat for a couple of years just in my head. Plus, I thought of the gang vocal thing, and I wanted to bring a big, monstrous, louder, harder, faster gang vocal type of thing. Swinging. It's one of those bands of the time, but our band especially, it's a signature thing. Having X amount of people scream louder, harder, faster at me. So that's what I try to do live. And like I said, that's a live song now. It's in the set every night.
Only Broken Heart. That was the second song that I really heard on the album. I really liked. I love the catchy. The guitar on there is like a throwback type of guitar, and it's how could you say, rhythmic. It gets in your head, and it's almost like it talks to you, that kind of guitar. And I've heard you compare it to like a Thin Lizzy type guitarish sound, but Only Broken Heart it's a great song.
Maybe that was the beginning. It started as another thing altogether, and I kind of had a epiphanal moment where you just sort of, well, I don't know about you. I think it was a half bottle of wine and one of my old Martins, my old acoustics, and I'm sitting around in my house once again. Like, God, this song is close, but to me it's not there. And we hashed it out in pre-production with Jeff, tweaked the chorus a little bit. Thank you very much, Jeff Filson, for helping me with that. It became what you hear. The Thin Lizzy thing, it's not like a rip-off. I mean, I know what I'm doing. Exhibitor of my influences.
Well, that's it. There's a difference between copying something and being influenced by it. Because, you could tell a band that's directly influenced by somebody and a band that's just trying to sound exactly like, an AC/DC or a Van Halen or whatever.
Right. Well, and I find I love Boston as well. Like the first two Boston records just blow my mind on a daily basis. On vinyl still. Thank you very much. So, but I defy you to find the Boston-esque guitar bendy riff things that, now I'm giving myself away, that Joey Allen and I came up with when he was doing solos on the record. Like,
right.
That's because I would go do this. But I do love guitar players like Paul Kossoff and Pete Townsend, Rick Nielsen, like big chord, but then cool bendy and simplistic, but just amazing signature. Tom Schultz has that amazing ability and simple guitar melody line, and that's where I get a lot of vocal stuff from. I think they translate. So for me, the little hooky lines that go over in Broken Heart, those are purpose built to complement the lyric, and then to bring your head back to the guitar, and then you come in with the melody. So when it came time for solos, well, dude, we have to do the 2-part stinger things. Like Joey's like, we need to do those. I said, well, dude, they're going to sound just like Thin Lizzy. He's like, yeah, no, that's awesome.
I can't put two words together when if I want to try to write a song. I mean, I could sit there and I could stare and stuff. And every kid, when they were growing up listening to different bands, we were all going to be songwriters. We were all going to be rock stars. And I could sit there and all I would do is rhyme words back and forth. And it just amazes me how you guys come up with this music. It really does astound me.
Oh man, I'm humbled. Thank you, but I don't know where it comes from. It just kind of happens. I love words and phrases and poetry and poetic verse and trochaic pentameter. Go look up those words, kids. So I have an English degree, so that's not completely wasted, I suppose.
I guess.
Becoming a singer-songwriter. So I had the piano chords in the morning and just a melody. First thing, like I said, I get my empty stomach, caffeinated, do my daily morning routine when I'm home, and I try to write a song.
The way it comes to it, it just amazes me. And I mean, the other songs, like I said, I don't want to keep you here all day, but Music Man, which I thought told a really good story. Faded, which it was like just 80s pop. I mean, that was an 80s pop song that could be played on the radio now. And Let It Go, which was, again, another fantastic guitar song. I mean, those three songs, Music Man, Faded, Let It Go, were the other three that stood out on this album. And I mean, if you want to talk about any of those, they're the other three songs I really loved. And I've been playing these songs, trying to mix one in every single week.
Well, once again, huge appreciation for doing that. Please, it's not lost on me how rare that is, so thank you, firstly. Okay, then on to the songs, because I know this is like, we're writing a book here. We are. It happens when I talk to somebody on the East Coast, and that comes back to me because I'm born and raised in New York and New Jersey.
Right.
So for me, like, it comes right back, and it's even just the interplay between people who I'm flying into JFK tomorrow. So, and I get to spend a day in New York, and then we're going to play some show on Saturday in Gettysburg. But so, okay, let's see. Music Man was Dixon. I think has the title, and it was a total different song. But he and I would get together at his place or mine, and mostly at his this time around, and bang out ideas in his studio, in his place. So the way we write together is he'll come up with a couple of buzzwords, and then a chord or two, or part of a song, and then I put what I have in, and then we'll run out of lyrics that we've done together, or he's given me a kind of a jumping off point. I go, okay, dude, could you make another pot of coffee? Like,
right.
Leave me alone for 15 or 30 minutes. So he does that, and I just go to work and come back and like, what do you think of this? And then he either yays or nays it, and we move on. So it just happened that one, I wanted to tell that story. I love the Warrant songs and the songs in general that, like Uncle Tom's Cabin or
right.
something like that actually, where you can connect with, I mean, God, come on, how many times has John Bon Jovi used Tommy and Gina? Because it works. Like, no, really, good on you, dude. It works.
Yeah, right. I know what you're saying.
So I wanted to do that, So that's how Music Man came out. I love that swampy vibe, and it is semi-autobiographical. I do remember an old guy, like in my neighborhood, and you see the old guy who's maybe fallen on hard times. He's homeless or he's not, but he's got an old guitar and he sits and plays, or an accordion or whatever, and I'm not pinning it down to one instrument or anything. I'll just say I'll leave it relatively ambiguous and say there is a semi-autobiographical aspect to that song for me, but I kind of, took artistic license and embellished the rest, and the chords just take over. I love that story. Guys sitting there, everybody thinks he's one thing, but he's another, and he's just doing his thing, the old blues man thing, where he's lived a hard life.
That's what I thought of.
Yeah. Faded was another thing that Dixon had. And he had part of the chorus, and he had lyrically, we had some stuff. We came together on the music, and I wrote the verses out of that. Is that Faded's the one with the kind of syncopated verses,
right?
Which I really like. Like, they came out in one or two takes. That's exactly what's on the record. Is exactly what's on our demo that Jerry and I did in his place. So that one just took a little more time to come together necessarily. Not necessarily like over a few minutes, but But in that trip to his place, we'd bang out 2-3 songs, and then I'd go home, and we'd ponder them, turn them over to the band, let everybody have their way with them, and then work on 3, 4, 5 more. So that's how the whole record came together.
And Let It Go. Fantastic guitar work.
Oh, man, Let It Go, that was a lot of Dixon. Once again, kudos to Jerry. And I think I just tweaked a bunch of his lyrics. We came together on the music. The verses, I think I tightened up the guitar verse things a little bit more than he had in the initial. But that was the spark was his. Like, I work well with that as a catalyst to whatever, I love doing that. If somebody's got an idea that I think has merit, I get excited about it, and then it becomes what it becomes. Yeah, that's got that, I don't know, people are maybe reading in a lot. That one is not autobiographical at all, but you just kind of, I go and watch people. You go to malls or go to an airport. I know a bunch of songwriters or, book writers do this, and they're great screenplay writers, where they'll just observe the human condition, make up a story for two people, and try to, just embellish it or complicate it. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, how would this person feel? Okay, what is this? So that's where that came from. It's not anything. It's kind of heavy subject matter, I suppose, but I still wanted it to be uplifting. Perhaps I didn't want it to be a bummer.
Right.
So hopefully that's what I did.
And that's what I find incredible. Louder, Harder, Faster is the name of the new album. And this is what I love talking about the songs, because on the surface, you say, oh, it's a Warrant album. It's partying, it's fun. But every song means something. And I love hearing the writing process of these songs, because I find it amazing that, I could sit here for the next 10 years and I probably get 2 notes and maybe 3 words that rhyme out. And I see you guys bang out these songs, and it simply is a credit. It's incredible. It really is.
Well, I mean, you're good at what you do, man. I'm a lousy plumber, so I'm probably better as a singer. I don't know if I could do what you do. So I'm just fortunate that I found my thing, I suppose. I'm very thankful for the fact that people appreciate it. I really am. Like, I know lead singers come off a lot of times with either God complex or cocky or whatever. I think there's a certain amount of, if you want to call it ego or whatever, that you have to do what I do for a living, but I realize, what it is, and I realize what it isn't.
All kidding aside, the Decades Artist Spotlight, Robert Mason with us. The new album's Louder, Harder, Faster. And Robert, as always, fantastic to have you on the show.
Thanks to you and your listeners. Seriously, Joe, we really, really appreciate it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Robert Mason here from the band Warrant. Joey Kramer and I are hanging out. You should be, too. Let's all listen on Decades.
Talk to you made me wonder, should I stop and think that leaving you is all to do? When it was right as rain. We just can't go back again. Tired of holding on to all the past. I want something I can want something that can last, and I'm ready to cleanse my soul. Tired of holding on to old regrets, restless days and long sunsets, and I'm ready now, I know, to let it go, let it go. Tired of holding on to all the past. I want something that can last, and I'm ready to cleanse my soul. Let it go, let it go. Tired of holding on to all regrets, restless days and cold sunsets, and I'm ready now, I know, to let it go, let it go. Tired of holding on to all regrets. Now I know. Tired of holding on to all, yeah. Let it go.
Total Reach Radio. This is the Decades Artist Spotlight. Warrant right there. Their new one, Let It Go.
This week's Decades Artist Spotlight continues. Now, here's Joe E. Kramer with this week's artist.
We are on a Decades Artist Spotlight. We've been talking to Robert Mason of the rock band Warrant. They got a brand new album called Louder, Harder, Faster. And it is a really good album. I got it in advance about, back in May. And then I talked to Robert, and I got to say, complete from the first track to the last one. Rockaholic, I also like. Let's face it, it's, we all miss Jamie Lane. We all love the original singers. It's a good thing, though, that Warren has stuck with one singer, and now Robert is definitely, without a doubt, a part of that band and doing a great job on that album. So thank you, Robert Mason, for joining us tonight. Now, our next Decades Artist Spotlight will be coming up in 2 weeks. Next Saturday night, Shadow Steel will be joining us again for the Labor Day weekend. And then on September 9th, the following week, we will have the one and only Mike Score of A Flock of Seagulls. Crazy haircut and all, although he doesn't have as much hair as he used to. And we talk about that, too. Mike Score from A Flock of Seagulls on the next Decades Artist Spotlight coming up in 2 weeks, which will be September 9th. We got more decades coming up, including, I know you're all waiting for it, Singing with the Sam, #1 song, 1985, and we will do our rendition. So I know you're anxiously awaiting, and it's coming up. This is Decades on Total Reach Radio, 105 The River, 104.9 and 100.7 FM, 1340 AM around the world at 105theriver.net. Decades with JoeEKramer.com and the Radio Bold app, new and improved. We'll be right back. This is Decades.